Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to part 2 of my indie game dev series. The plans for today are pretty simple. First, I'll be making some new terrain and shading. Then I'll be adding in a new weapon style system, which I'll explain later. Then I'll also start making the player stats actually work from last episode. Before we get started, just so you guys know, the rest of the videos in the series are probably going to be much slower paced than the first one. That way I can actually make these somewhat consistently. Also, if you leave a comment with something goofy and I decide to add it, it'll probably take a little while before it actually gets put in the game, just because, stuff takes time. Then also on top of that, these episodes are recorded like way before they actually get uploaded. So if I say I'm going to add it, I probably will, but it's going to take a little while. So keep commenting goofy stuff and it might just show up in the game. Getting started with the terrain, the first thing I did was create new terrain textures. Last time I built the shading into the textures, but that really restricted what I could do with them, so I just decided to separate them into two separate textures and just overlay them instead. I didn't record myself making them, but I made grass, dirt, sand, brick, stone brick, and sandstone brick. After adding in the textures, I started work on shading. I wanted to have the shading be similar to Terraria, but I don't know how to do that, so I just settled for having baked lighting. Baked lighting is just having pre-rendered lighting rather than having it be made as the game runs. For the shading, I changed the old shading texture that I put on top of the blocks to be a lot higher resolution. It worked pretty well at first, but stuff like the slopes didn't look great, and along with like some corners. So I ended up just replacing it with the old pixelated shadow texture. I probably could have fixed it, but I didn't feel like it, so. And then right around this point in development is where I started making the music for the game that you all saw in the first video. Unfortunately, it takes quite a while, so the progress overall in making the game slowed down a lot at this point. And to be honest, the main reason why the first video took so long to come out after all the footage was recorded was mostly just because I wanted to make the music instead of actually working on the video. The next thing I did was start working on the weapon style system. The system would basically just allow players to change their normal weapon attacks to a new set of attacks, so rather than different weapons having their own special attacks, it would be any weapon you can use any set of attacks on. Although it wouldn't be as good with like certain weapons. For example, like a style that does a lot of stabs would work a lot better on like a dagger than it would on like a hammer. And then certain ones would have like special buffs or special effects that normal ones wouldn't have. Before I go too in-depth into the weapon styles, it would probably be best to explain how the weapons are set up first, since I skipped over it in my first videos. Basically, each weapon's going to have a script with an array containing their stats, and then a second array containing their stats for just their individual attack types. And then when you actually do an attack, it's going to multiply these stats together, and then multiply them by your player stats. And after all this, I started working on the biggest thing of this whole recording, this whole episode, which was this basic inventory thing. Now, it didn't turn out great, and by that I mean it looked like shit, so I'll just skip over the process of making it, but I feel like I should at least mention it since it's going to pop up from time to time, and it did take the longest. Out of all the recording time of this video, this takes up a majority of it. Alright, so anyway, let's just skip to the next recording session. Okay, so that seems strange. It appears I'm still working on the inventory. So let me just skip to the next one. Okay, so now I'm coding some. Oh, no, never mind. Inventory again. Surely that's it, right? There's definitely no more. Okay, so it's actually over now. This is the most time I've spent working on literally anything in this entire project so far. And, it's getting scrapped later anyway, so it's all perfect. Anyway, back to the important stuff. So, after that, I, again, for some reason, recreated the map. I don't know why. I think it's just, my favorite activity to do at this point is just repeatedly remaking the map. So, I'm going to put a counter up here. It's already at 2, because it's including when I remade it at the start of this video. After testing it a little bit, I started work on making the player stats actually work. So, first of all, I added more stuff to the player stat enums. Basically, what enums are, it's like a dictionary that turns keywords into integers, so numbers. It's basically just used to make things a lot more efficient in code, instead of using like strings for everything, since strings are a lot harder for code to run. Now, I actually lied to you. I already started work on the system to make the player stats actually apply. It basically just takes in some values, like what type of stat it is, what source it came from, and then some other data, then it outputs whatever it would be applying the player stats. Then the last thing I did was add a jump delay, so it basically just makes it so you can't do a double jump until you reach near the top of your movement arc, that way you don't waste your jumps by just spamming the key. After this point, there's a bit of a time jump between the recordings since I took a break from working on the game. So I'm going to end this episode here. Yet again, if you have any suggestions, make sure to let me know down in the comments. And also, this is still a really small channel, so if you like the video and like the series, make sure to like and subscribe. One last FYI, if you're going to leave a comment asking for things like, I don't know, gay sex, which has already been asked by multiple people, by the way, YouTube will block it, and it does not let me unblock it, which makes me really sad. I've tried. So if you want to make suggestions like that, you can join my Discord and put them there.